So this guy, a French influencer with millions of followers, posted a video bawling his eyes out, having a full-on breakdown, saying someone kidnapped his dog. He posted security footage, ransom negotiations, a dramatic reunion, the whole thing. And then it came out that the whole situation was staged to gain Snapchat followers. Not money, not a brand deal, Snapchat followers. And I need you to stay with me because this gets so much worse. His name is Cyril Schreiner, and if you're as old as me, you might remember this video of his that went viral.
J'ai ouvert cette vanne-là pour que ça va dans les tuyaux et en fait ça remonte par tous les trous de la maison. Et j'appuie sur la chasse pour que ça s'en va. Du coup je vais essayer ça.
Cyril has been an influencer for the last 10 years and he's posted all sorts of content, but lately he's been posting a lot about his dogs. He has two of them, the black one is called Christine and the other one is called Albert. And Albert is going to be the main character of today's story because Cyril came to TikTok recently and said this.
Hier soir, 2 personnes se sont introduites chez moi et ont pris Albert.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to make you sit through this much French. I will be translating what he's saying, but just for full transparency, I will not be translating word for word. I will just tell you generally what he's talking about. So, right off the bat, we see Cyril who looks like he's just cried or like he's crying, clearly in distress. We know something is wrong. And he says that basically last night 2 people kidnapped his dog Albert. And as of now, Cyril doesn't know where Albert is, where they took him, what they want to do with him, etc. But says that he recorded the whole thing on CCTV because he had to install it because, as he says, in the last 7 years, people tried to steal from him more than 7 times. So that's why he had the CCTV around his house. The dog was kidnapped the night before recording around 10 to 11 p.m. Cyril says that usually at this time he goes out with his dogs, they go around the house and the dogs do what they need to do, you know, as their like last walk before going to bed. Cyril shows this blurry picture of himself leaving the house with Albert. Then says that this time he didn't really have time to go around the house with the dogs because he had something to do, so he just let them out and got back home. Then he mentions the 2 people that were outside his house and he says that he didn't notice them at the time, he didn't know they were there, so he just let the dogs out thinking, you know, everything is okay, not assuming that something is wrong. And again, he shows this very small picture of the 2 people, and the problem of the pictures from the CCTV footage he shows is that he purposefully makes them very small, so even if you try to zoom in and see more details, you really can't do that because they get pixelated and you just cannot see or tell what's going on in the picture. Anyway, he says that those people were waiting there for hours. He like checked the CCTV footage after the whole thing happened, so he knows that they've been there for hours. And basically what happened was that the dogs went out, so it was Albert and Christine. And again, then he shows this picture of the 2 people behind the gate, I guess. I don't know. Again, like the pictures are such bad quality, I cannot really tell what's going on, but I think it's a picture of the 2 people behind the gate. So the dogs went out, the people were waiting there behind the gate, and then he heard Christine howl, so the other dog. And he was really surprised because he says that Christine doesn't really do this, but he went outside to check if everything is okay. Maybe she saw something running by the garden or whatever, so he goes outside. He sees Christine, who's doing okay, but he doesn't see Albert. So he goes to the security camera to check the footage, to check where Albert is, and he doesn't see Albert anywhere. He shows another blurry picture of the kidnappers, and then he says something along the lines of, oh, I know those people are following me on social media, I know this was like directed at me or at Albert, and I know those people will want something from me, something, you know, among those lines. Then he goes on to say that he already sent the footage to the authorities, that he reported this whole situation, that the police is looking for Albert, and then he also says that this attack was clearly directed at Albert because Christine was kind of like closer to the kidnappers, so if they didn't care which dog to take, they would just take Christine because it was easier for them than to take Albert, who was like further away from the gate. I think here Cyril wanted to kind of gain some extra empathy, sympathy points, or make people feel even worse because, you know, when you think about it, if someone wants to kidnap an influencer's dog, why would they care which dog that is? You know what I mean? Like, just take whichever one is easiest to take if you want like ransom from that influencer or whatever. But Cyril purposefully makes it seem as if the attack was directed at Albert. And I think that's from like an audience perspective, you just feel worse for the dog because you're like, why would they direct it at Albert? If Christine was there, they could have taken Christine. Why would they do that? And I, even watching this, felt like, oh my god, poor dog, what are they going to do to him? Why would they pick Albert specifically? So I think Cyril, like, knowing what I know now, knowing how the story finishes, I think Cyril made it more dramatic just to gain some extra like empathy points, like I said. Then he says that if anyone has any information about this whole thing, please DM him, because he is almost sure that the kidnappers are his followers and they targeted him specifically. And at the end, and this is very important, he says that he has over 10 minutes of CCTV footage and he will post it to his Snapchat, so if anyone wants to see it, they should follow him there. That should have been an immediate red flag, because think about it, if your dog goes missing and you want to do everything possible to get them back, why would you direct people to your Snapchat account, which is, I guess, less popular? Why wouldn't you post it on TikTok or Instagram or whatever your biggest platform is, right? Because in my head, if my dog goes missing, I want as many people as possible to know about it so they can help me find my dog. So why would you direct people to your Snapchat and not just post it so people can see it and help you? I don't know, should have been a red flag, but to me it wasn't at this point. So I know you know that this whole situation was faked, but just for a minute, let's imagine that we are just the audience of this guy, right? We follow him on TikTok, we watch him every day, he posts a lot of content with his dogs. So as the audience, we kind of develop this emotional relationship with the dogs, and then the same creator posts a video crying, saying that someone kidnapped his dog, that they targeted him specifically and kidnapped his dog, then obviously you would be worried. You would feel like empathy, sympathy for them. I mean, especially if you're a dog lover like me, you would feel scared for the dog, because why would someone do this? Do they want to hurt him? Do they just want ransom? Like, all types of thoughts kind of start appearing in your head. And because of that, there were a lot of very supportive comments. People were saying things like, all the support in the world, we are thinking of Albert and you, I hope you find him healthy and safe, we are going to find Albert. Generally speaking, a lot of support. And I think Cyril very, very, very much capitalized on this empathy, trying to direct people to his Snapchat account so they could see more of the story. And if someone is invested and worried about Albert, obviously they would want to know as much as possible, right? I will talk about it later a little bit more about this whole Snapchat situation, because you will see that he posts the most ridiculous things regarding the situation on his Snapchat. But I don't know because I don't have Snapchat, but I heard that Snapchat pays the most for views right now, definitely more than TikTok. So clearly Cyril made this situation up to get people to follow him on Snapchat so he could make more money. So there is like a financial motive here. So 72 hours since Albert got taken go by, and Cyril posts another video saying he doesn't really have any news about Albert, he still doesn't know where he is, but he needs to address certain things. He says there is a lot of like misinformation, fake news regarding the situation. First of all, he says certain people are posting videos saying that Albert was found, which he wasn't at this point. He then says he also saw people post offers on like Vinted and Le Bon Coin, which is like kind of like a French version of Vinted, or, you know, something similar. And he asks people to stop doing this because this is a very difficult situation for him, and, you know, it's all just lies. It's not true. He then says he cannot talk too much about the investigation, probably because there is no investigation, and that he's being harassed by like journalists, etc. But he doesn't care about any of this. He just wants to find Albert. And then he says again that he thinks that the people who kidnapped Albert are his followers and they know of him. He warns people not to listen to anybody else, just to follow him on his official accounts on TikTok and Instagram, etc., and obviously Snapchat, because as he puts it, you know, I talk to you from the heart on there because I don't always have time to set the camera and edit a video, but Snapchat is a place where I can just post an unedited video. And at this point, the Snapchat promotion is so blatant, right? Like, you cannot deny it. He's like promoting his Snapchat as much as he can, and the reason is so stupid because obviously obviously. You don't have to set your camera up and edit a video to post it on TikTok or to your Instagram story or whatever. You can just like record it in your hand like you would on Snapchat. There's no requirement on TikTok to set your camera up and do it like professionally, especially if you're in a situation like this and you're trying to find your dog, you're trying to get the word out. Trust me, you can just post an unedited, blurry video and it's acceptable. But I guess at the time, no one was really paying as much attention to it because people were worried about Albert and his well-being. They were very much invested in the story. So I don't think as many people were, pointing out that he's trying to promote his Snapchat specifically. But don't get me wrong, he obviously was accused of lying because he is an influencer, and that's something, it was fishy. This whole explanation, this whole story was very fishy. So people started accusing him of lying and, giving different reasons why he would lie. So 5 days after Albert was taken, Cyril posted another video. Cyril says that he has some very good news about Albert, but first he needs to address things that have been said on the internet. So first he shows this very small and blurry picture, and basically what it is someone checked if Cyril really reported this situation to the police by looking him up in some sort of like official database. And basically nothing came up. There was only like some old case that Cyril was involved in. There was I'm not showing you this picture in great detail specifically because Cyril's personal information is on there. I don't really want to take part in like leaking this information, but basically there was no report of Albert missing. And Cyril says, yes, that's true because I wasn't the one who reported the situation, it was my boyfriend. And at this point, the story very much starts cracking because if it's your dog that went missing, why wouldn't you want to be on like official papers? Why would you ask your boyfriend to do it? But Cyril says that he did it just to avoid this kind of situation happening. He didn't want someone to look him up and look at his information because, he's like an influencer, people know of him. And then he says that he hopes this person will face repercussions for what they did. The person who kind of posted this information online is another influencer called Aka Babe, I believe it's pronounced. Well, it's not very much an influencer, it's more of like a gossip account. And he posted this screenshot on Twitter saying, Cyril isn't in the database, and apparently some anonymous police officer sent this screenshot to Akababe and then he posted it leaking Cyril's information. So mind you, it wasn't like a public database that anyone had access to. It was a very specific database that only authorities had access to, and someone literally went there, looked Cyril up and then sent it to Akababe, who then ended up leaking Cyril's information. Cyril says that he is disappointed that even the authorities cannot be trusted nowadays. And while, of course, what Cyril did was horrible, faking his dog kidnapping, capitalizing on people's empathy, obviously that's horrible behavior. However, that doesn't excuse someone who, let's say, works as a police officer to leak Cyril's information. If you have a job with this much responsibility, if you're trusted with people's private and very sensitive information, you don't get to decide when to leak it. If you think a crime is being committed, you report it, but you don't get to decide when and how to leak someone's sensitive information. So while generally I don't really like Cyril, obviously, for what he did, I do have to agree with him here. This should never have happened. Even influencers get the right to some reasonable privacy. But let's get back to what Cyril is saying about the whole situation, because he then talks about how people accuse him of doing this for money and views. Basically, he says that he'd had millions of views and followers before this whole situation started, so he really had no interest in posting this just for views or attention. He even says that he is losing money because of this whole situation, because he had some sponsorship signed for Albert, that Albert was supposed to do some videos like promoting something, whatever, and obviously right now he cannot film this content, so he is in fact losing money. Then he shows this screenshot in which we can see that he made around 300 euros on TikTok from those videos, and he says something along the lines of, do you really think I would fake this whole story just to make 300 euros? And I'm kind of like, Yeah, I mean, I would believe it. Maybe he wouldn't do it just for the 300 euros, but we've seen influencers do absolutely crazy things just to get some views and attention and a few extra euros in their account. Like, this really isn't that unheard of. On top of that, he's promoting his Snapchat account in every video. So even if we take out like the money aspect, he's clearly promoting his Snapchat while talking about this. So yeah, this is very believable that he's faked it. And also, after it came out that it was really fake, that he staged the whole thing, I'm even more like, yeah, you're just proving that we cannot trust influencers. Like, the amount of hypocrisy in this video of him being like, I would never do it for views and for money, whatever, but follow me on Snapchat. Like, you know what I mean? The hypocrisy here is just horrible. And it's not like being an influencer is any type of public trust position. Like, we obviously don't believe influencers too much, but just saying, oh my god, why would you guys think I would do it just for the money, and then just doing it for money but on Snapchat, like, yeah, you're just proving our point, really. He also says, and this is very subtle foreshadowing, that if he faked this whole story, he would be jeopardizing the career that he's been building for the last 10 years, that he would lose his credibility. And yeah, this happens in the end. He then also goes on to say that if he wanted to, he could get just like a regular job. He doesn't need to rely on social media. So even if he was losing like views and followers, he wouldn't have done it. And then he finally gets to the news about Albert, obviously leaving it for the last moment in the video just to make his retention go up, so as many people would watch for as long as possible. But yeah, eventually he gets to the news about Albert. He said that he found some TikTok account which posts videos with Albert, and that the kidnappers have been emailing him, and he said he's not going to read those emails, but he's really happy that this is all happening because he now believes that Albert will be found. He doesn't know when, but that it will happen. And then he says that he's like negotiating with the kidnappers, and if anyone knows how to trace an IP address from an email if they could contact him. And again, I'm kind of like, you reported this to the authorities. Shouldn't the authorities be able to do that? I mean, I don't know, maybe I don't know about French police too much, and maybe I don't know how they treat cases like this, but it's kind of bizarre that if you have reported it somewhere, you would be asking people on the internet how to trace an IP address. And then at the end, he also just says to not go to the TikTok account of people posting Albert and not harass them, because Cyril believes those are just some teenagers and he doesn't understand why they are doing this and what's in their head, but he doesn't want them to get harassed because those are probably just teenagers. After this video, Cyril posted that Albert has been found. Yay, amazing. Albert has been found. He deleted that picture off of TikTok, but he also obviously posted this on Snapchat. And right now I'm going to tell you a bit about what he was posting on Snapchat at this time, because this is absolutely crazy and ridiculous. He basically filmed the entire process of going to pick Albert up from the kidnapper's house.
Et Albert, il a été retrouvé, je sais où il est. La personne en question m'a enfin dit, putain. Et j'ai pleuré de joie là quand je viens d'apprendre. Là, je fonce direct, malheureusement, c'est à plus de 2 heures en voiture.
So he basically showed himself like getting to the house of the kidnappers and then fighting with them, finding Albert.
Albert! Oh, Mimi! De quoi tu vas m'expliquer? Mimi, Mimi.
And after he was finally reunited with Albert, he sat down with the kidnappers and they had a pretty long conversation, and so many bizarre things were said. First of all, the kidnappers said that they made this TikTok account that, you know, Cyril talked about in his previous video. They made this account to show Cyril that Albert was okay, that he was in no danger. Then it only gets worse from here, trust me. Then they say that they've been following Cyril for so long that they knew what type of medication Albert was taking, and they were giving Albert this exact medication. They even show the pills to Cyril, and Cyril like kind of looks at them, verifies them, and says, yeah, it's like the right medication. Like, not very believable in my opinion, but okay. And then the most ridiculous things happens, and the kidnapper says that it's basically late, and Cyril lives like 2 hours away from the place where they met, so maybe Cyril should stay the night. And at first Cyril's like, are you serious? Would you really think I would stay the night here? But then he does end up staying the night there because he says it's late and there are no hotels nearby that could take him, so he stays the night at the kidnapper's house. The kidnapper even shows him like the food he got so they could eat together. Like there's this whole interaction is very bizarre. Like I think Cyril wanted to make it seem as if this person, this kidnapper, was really obsessed with him, and that's why they did it. And it was obviously very ridiculous. But I think it was purposefully ridiculous because you'll see in a minute that this is a very important part of Cyril's defense, that he made the situation look as ridiculous as possible so people would know it's just a joke. So yeah, Albert was found. We were also happy that Albert was found. And like Cyril would go on TikTok and say that if anyone keeps perpetuating lies about him, saying that he faked this whole situation, he will basically sue them. This was now deleted. Maybe I'll find it. If not, just take my word for it. Like Cyril was posting stuff like this on TikTok. It's been like 3 days since I recorded that video. I'm almost done editing and I just wanted to look something up on Cyril's TikTok. And actually all of the videos concerning the situation are now deleted. So I guess it's a good thing I downloaded them when I did. But then after a few days of people, continuously accusing him of lying, Cyril finally decided to admit to the whole thing. Just before we start talking about this apology video, this is one of the worst apologies I've seen in a very, very long time for several reasons, so let's analyze it. Cyril starts by saying that he's been an influencer for the last 10 years and lately he's been enjoying his content less and less. He generally had like a very tough year, but he didn't want to show it online because he tries to keep his like private and online life separate. He says that he was kind of making content automatically. He wasn't really enjoying it as much as he was at the beginning. And then he talks about how there is this huge misconception about content creators, that they are like surrounded by people and they are never alone. But Cyril says that he is in fact very alone because he films himself, edits himself, like he doesn't have any team or anything like this. The only not people, but he only spends time with his dogs. Like he doesn't really have that many people around him. And it's such a ridiculous start to an apology video because I feel like he's trying to convince us that life is so hard for him. But am I really supposed to believe that getting paid to stay home and film videos with your dog is such a horrible life? Like I don't feel bad for him that he's doing something like this. I mean, if you're like an everyday person, right, you have to get up every day and go to work and spend hours in an office or your place of work. You have to deal with people you don't like. And this guy at the beginning of his video was complaining that life is hard for him because he just stays home with his dogs and films himself, and that's what he gets paid for. Like, you know how many people would switch places with an influencer like that? But then he goes on to say that he wanted to do something different with his content. So at first he posted kind of like a casting call, and he thought maybe he would make videos with like members of his audience. He wanted to get back to telling stories like he did at the beginning of his career in 2016, because even though he was getting millions of views, he wasn't really he didn't like too much what he was doing. There is nothing wrong with this, right? I mean, there is nothing wrong with switching up your content if you don't like making it anymore. There's nothing wrong with this. But how was faking your dog's kidnapping supposed to help that? That's the part I don't understand here. He then goes on to say that this whole story wasn't supposed to bring him like more followers or views or whatever, because he already gets millions of views, so he doesn't need them. He wanted to redirect people to Snapchat because Snapchat has always been kind of his favorite app.
On sait tous très bien, toutes les personnes qui sont sur les réseaux savent que les réseaux ne payent plus du tout la même chose comme c'était à l'époque. Pourquoi je vous ai redirigé aussi tout le temps sur Snap? C'est parce que moi, c'est mon application favorite.
And like I told you before, I heard from like multiple people, I think on TikTok, that Snapchat actually pays a lot, and it definitely pays a lot more than TikTok. So I do believe there was like a financial incentive here. Then he starts like actually apologizing and says he's sorry that he didn't expect people to get this emotionally like engaged in this situation, because he's been like a content creator for 10 years and he's never found himself this like invested into someone else's life. So it kind of like surprised him that people did. He says he regrets it because his point was never to get people to be worried. He always wanted to entertain people and like share happiness and, you know, stuff like this. It's in French, I don't know how to translate that exactly, but he wanted to entertain people, make people laugh, generally speaking, and he wanted people to notice that this is a joke. That's why he made this whole situation so ridiculous. But then in the end he realized there are certain topics that shouldn't be joked about, and I'm like asking myself, what was supposed to be the funny part about your dog getting kidnapped? Like, there was not a moment for me where it was funny, maybe except for when he decided to stay the night at the kidnapper's house. Like, that was maybe funny, but I think that was actually orchestrated because he realized the story is cracking. He realized that people will find out he is lying, so the end was as ridiculous as possible just so he could use it to defend himself in the end. He says that his priorities are his dogs and that he's very touched by the fact that people are saying that he hates animals and he does something bad to animals, because he doesn't. He loves animals. And in here, I do have to say, I don't think he did anything bad to the dogs, because from what I understand right now, the dogs were just with him in his house. Like, there was nothing bad happening to the dogs. So I don't believe he like hates animals or anything like this. I think he just tried to capitalize on people's empathy and he didn't hurt the dogs in any way, in my opinion. So I don't know, let me know what you think. He says that when he showed the videos from like CCTV footage, it wasn't even Albert in this video, it was a sack of potatoes, and that was supposed to be like the funny, ridiculous part. And also the whole thing with staying the night at the kidnappers was also supposed to be ridiculous. But I'm kind of like, when he posted the CCTV footage on TikTok, I couldn't see anything in this picture. Like, it was so small, even if you zoomed in, you couldn't really tell like the specifics of the picture. So I don't know how about Snapchat. Maybe on Snapchat it was more visible. I don't know. And with the kidnapper, with staying the night at the kidnapper's house, I already told you, I think he like came up with this at the very end of the story because he was like, oh my god, people are going to realize I lied. I have to make up something ridiculous just so I can say it was a joke. Like, I don't see any other motive here. And he says that in his opinion it worked, because in the end everybody laughed at how ridiculous it was. But you will see in the comments that nobody is laughing. He then says that he didn't want to make jokes at people who, like, he didn't want to make fun of people who lost their dogs, because it never really crossed his mind that these things happen in real life. Because he never went through this, he doesn't know anyone who actually went through this in real life. So in his head, it was as if it didn't really exist. He just didn't think of people who got their animals like kidnapped, stolen, or whatever you want to call it. And in my opinion, this is an incredibly bold thing to say in an apology video. Like, yeah, I just didn't think of people I would hurt with this joke. Like, why is this part of your apology? Why would you even say that? It makes you seem very like self-centered, very egoistic, that you don't think of other people, because it never happened to you, it never happened to the people you know, so you just didn't think it happens in real life. Like, what is that supposed to mean? I don't know if he wrote this apology for himself or if he got some help from like a PR specialist or whatever, but this is a horrible apology so far, right? And it only gets worse, trust me, but it's so horrible. You start with saying, oh, my life is so hard because I only stay home with my dogs and film content, as if we are supposed to feel bad for you that you get to stay home and film content with your dogs and get money for this, and you can just live like this. You have all the freedom in the world to do whatever you want with your day, and I'm supposed to feel bad for you that you have to film content with your dogs and you're so lonely. Like, you can fix this. And then when he actually gets to the part of explaining why he did that, he just says, oh, I just didn't think of people who actually got their animals stolen. What kind of explanation is that? He then again apologizes and says that he's taking all the responsibility for this whole situation. He also goes on to say that he was leaving traces, that this whole situation was staged, trying to make it seem as ridiculous as possible, and that he's so sorry about it. And this part, to me, feels like he's shifting the blame onto his audience, right? Like, I left clues for you so you would know that this is fake and you didn't realize it's not my fault. But then again, anytime someone on the internet would like accuse him of lying, he would go on and film a TikTok and be like, I'm going through this very difficult situation and people are accusing me of lying, like this is so insensitive, whatever. Like, even the people who were noticing traces, you would respond and you would say that no, this is all real and you feel so bad. And you're trying to make your audience feel bad for the fact that they felt for you, that they felt some sympathy for you, they wanted to help you, and you're like, oh yeah, I left traces, you should have known, it was a joke. I don't know, do you see like the problem I have with his line of thinking here? Like, what is he talking about? Why is he shifting the blame onto the audience? And this is why I think this is such a bad apology, because first he says, oh, I just didn't think of people who went through this in real life. And then he says, I was leaving clues so you would realize that it's all jokes. This isn't taking responsibility, this is just deflecting. Because in my opinion, when he first came up with this whole idea, he didn't want to make it funny or ridiculous. He wanted people to get invested into the story so they would follow him on Snapchat and they could see like more footage, etc. They could follow the story more closely. And I think it wasn't until he realized that the lies are cracking that he decided to make this situation more ridiculous just so he could use it as his defense later on. And the people in the comments didn't like this apology either, and there were comments saying things like, my son and I cried when we found out Albert was kidnapped. My 16-year-old is autistic and he adores watching Albert and you Cyril, and he wanted to get his own passport and go to France and help you look for Albert. He was absolutely devastated. It's cruel, I feel betrayed. I was checking few times a day if Albert is okay, translating every post because I don't speak French. I'm sorry, but this was not funny at any point. I agree. I don't know at which point it was supposed to be funny. Same, I was terrified for Albert. I kept imagining my own dogs in this position. Horrible, hope he loses every last follower over this. Like, as a dog owner, you would imagine your dog in this situation. You could sympathize with him very much, and I could. Because I can't imagine what I would be going through if someone's kidnapped my dog. Excuses not accepted. So as you can see, people were very mad at him and they didn't accept his apology. So then he posted this.
Dernière fois que je prends la parole parce que là je vois des trucs, ça m'énerve. Qu'est-ce que vous voulez? Qu'est-ce que vous voulez? J'ai déjà tout essayé.
And I wish you could understand all the ridiculous things he's saying, but here I am to translate. He basically says, it's my last time speaking about this. What do you want from me? I already tried everything. I tried to apologize. Do you want me to do this on live? And he shows this. What's your point in all this? I've been posting every day for 10 years. I always try to make you guys laugh. I made a mistake and I'm paying the consequences. What else am I supposed to do? Like, he basically goes on like this for 6 minutes.
J'ai fait de la merde, ce que j'ai fait c'est horrible, mais vraiment mais dégueulasse ce que je vous ai fait faire. Mais bon, écoutez, voilà, de toute façon aujourd'hui j'en paie les conséquences, voilà, comme vous avez vu, bah voilà, il y a plein d'infos, enfin voilà, avec ça devant la justice, écoutez, ça va dépenser la vie, mais vous voulez que je fasse quoi de plus? J'ai essayé de proposer mon aide pour acheter de la sauce, etc. Personne ne me l'aide, écoutez, c'est pas grave, j'ai proposé de l'argent, personne ne me l'argent, écoutez, c'est comme ça, c'est la vie, mais demandez pardon pour les affaires.
So he's saying like, oh, like I'm dealing with the consequences, I'm taking all responsibility, but don't be mad at me. Like, the part of dealing with the consequences of this situation that you created is the fact that you have to accept that people will be mad at you for a while. They will be bringing it up in your comments. They will be talking about this because you did something really shitty to people. Like, they were empathizing with you. They were trying to help you find your dog. And then you were saying like the whole time, oh, if it turns out to be fake, if I'm lying, I'm going to lose my credibility. I'm going to lose followers. It jeopardizes my career that I've been building for the last 10 years. And now the exact thing that he was talking about is happening, and he's like, oh my god, what do you want from me? I already apologized. Not to mention how horrible the apology video was. Like, the reasons he gave for why he did this don't explain anything, in my opinion. Like, if you want to say that you're taking responsibility and dealing with the consequences, you cannot like crash out on TikTok because people are mad at you. Yeah, people are mad at you. Anytime I see content creators or influencers who've been on the internet for so long, for like 10 years in his case, acting as if they're surprised that the internet works this way. Like, we all knew, you knew this was going to happen. You said that this would happen if you are lying, and it's happening, and you're like so confused, and what do people want from me? Ridiculous. And in the comments, someone said, my only question is, if you haven't been caught, would you have admitted it was a prank? And he responded, whatever I say, you are not going to believe me anyway. And I really like this comment. So right now we are the problem, because I really don't know what he expected. Like, he tried to shift the blame in his apology video onto the people that you guys just didn't realize it was a joke. It was clearly a joke. I was making it clear. I was leaving traces. No, he didn't. And now you're like, oh, you guys don't want to accept my apology, you're so mad at me. Yeah, people are going to be mad at you for a while. And if I'm to be honest with you, I think eventually people will forget. And he will just go back to making his regular content, and he will continue being an influencer. I don't think this will end his career. But if he is so adamant that he is dealing with the consequences, deal with the consequences. Those are the consequences. You have to live with them. It's me editing again. He's actually already posting as if nothing happened. He seems to even have some paid collaborations. So I guess a little over a month was enough to go back to normal. He wanted to exploit people's empathy. He created a very convincing story, in my opinion. A lot of people got engaged, and now they feel betrayed. I don't think he can just simply crash out his way out of this situation. He has to face the consequences. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think it's not that big of a deal, that maybe I'm crashing out here? But to me, this is clearly capitalizing on empathy and kind of like exploiting your audience, exploiting their feelings for your dogs. So let me know if you agree with me or not. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe. Bye.